Russia says crisis talks have ended between President Vladimir Putin and the leaders of France and Germany on a peace proposal for Ukraine. A spokesman for Putin, speaking early Saturday, described the late-night talks as constructive, but did not provide details. Dmitri Peskov said the meeting will be followed by phone talks on Sunday between the Russian leader and Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko, as well as further contacts with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and French President Francois Hollande. Friday's meeting comes a day after the German and French leaders met in Kyiv with Ukraine's Western-backed President, Petro Poroshenko. Ahead of Friday's meeting, Merkel said the initiative that she and Hollande are presenting in Moscow is aimed at defending European peace and ending the bloodshed in Ukraine. "We are convinced that there will be no military solution to this conflict. But we also know that the question remains fully open whether we will succeed in achieving a ceasefire through these talks," Merkel said. "We do not know if we will be successful today or if perhaps further talks will be necessary. We can only do what it is in our power to do. The situation is fluid and try to contribute all we can to a solution to this conflict, and particularly to bringing the bloodshed to an end." Hollande on Thursday called the proposal a new solution to the conflict, based on the territorial integrity of Ukraine. Poroshenko said the plan raised hopes for a ceasefire. Diplomats meet in Brussels. In Brussels Friday, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden accused Russia of continuing to escalate the conflict in Ukraine by sending in mercenaries and tanks. "Ukraine is fighting for the very survival now," Biden told reporters at a joint press briefing with President of the European Council, Donald Tusk. "This is the moment the US and Europe must stand together. Russia cannot be allowed to redraw the map of Europe, because that's exactly what they are doing." Biden is among the world leaders, diplomats, and defense officials expected in Munich later Friday for a three-day security conference where the Ukraine crisis is high on the agenda. Top world leaders, diplomats, and defense officials are expected at the conference, including Poroshenko, Biden, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Also Friday, pro-Russian separatists and Ukrainian officials agreed to a temporary truce that allows for a humanitarian corridor so civilians can be evacuated from battle-scarred areas in eastern Ukraine. Convoys of buses converged Friday on the town of Debaltsev, where the population has been trapped in the crossfire of fierce fighting. The United Nations Refugee Agency reported that the fighting in eastern Ukraine's Donetsk region has pushed the number of registered internally displaced people nationwide to 980,000. The UNRWA said another 600,000 Ukrainians have sought asylum or other forms of legal stay in neighboring countries, including Russia, Belarus, Moldova, Poland, Hungary, and Romania, since last February. U.S. diplomatic efforts. On Thursday in Kyiv, Kerry blamed pro-Russian separatists and the Kremlin for the escalating violence in eastern Ukraine, saying Putin can make the choices that could end this war. Kerry spoke after talks with the president. "We want a diplomatic resolution," he said. "But we cannot close our eyes to the tanks that are crossing the Russian border coming into Ukraine." Russia has repeatedly denied direct involvement in the 10-month rebellion, which has claimed nearly 5,400 lives. Lethal aid. Ahead of his meeting with Kerry, Ukraine's president told Germany's Die Welt newspaper the recent upsurge in fighting should move NATO to provide Ukraine with more support, including modern weapons. "We still need a lot of military, technical, and specialist help to improve the fighting strength of the Ukrainian army," Poroshenko said in the interview. The Obama administration is evaluating those proposals, but has so far stopped short of providing Kyiv with lethal aid. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Alexander Lukashevich said Thursday that reports Washington may provide Kyiv with modern lethal weapons are a cause for serious concern. Such a move, he said, would not only worsen the situation in eastern Ukraine, but threaten the security of Russia, whose territory has been subjected to repeated attacks from the Ukrainian side. He added that such a decision may cause enormous damage to U.S.-Russian relations, especially if residents of eastern Ukraine are killed by American weapons. Putin holds emergency meeting. In Moscow, the Kremlin reported Putin held an emergency meeting of his Advisory Security Council to discuss the Ukraine situation, in light of his meeting with Merkel and Hollande. Fighting in Russian-speaking eastern Ukraine surged after last week's breakdown of the latest round of peace talks aimed at ending the rebellion.